Emma's heart plummeted as the weak foal collapsed again, his trembling legs betraying him while his mother stood over him with a fierce protectiveness that defied explanation. When the veterinarian reached for the euthanasia solution, something in the mare's unwavering eyes sparked a determination in Emma that would challenge everything medical science claimed was possible. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. The sunlight filtered through the cracks of the old barn, casting long golden rays across the hay-strewn floor. Outside, Willow Creek Ranch continued its morning bustle, but inside this weathered structure, time seemed to stand still. In the corner stall, Bella, a chestnut mare with a white blaze down her face, stood protectively over her newborn foal. Her eyes, normally bright with spirit, now reflected a deep worry that only a mother could understand. The foal, just 3 days old, lay motionless on his side. His coat, a perfect match to his mother's rich chestnut, gleamed in the morning light. But there was something terribly wrong. Despite Bella's gentle nudging and soft nickering, the little one couldn't stand. His legs, which should have been strong enough to support him within hours of birth, seemed useless, like fragile twigs unable to bear the weight of his small body. "It doesn't look good, Thomas," said Dr. Marshall, the local veterinarian, as he packed his equipment after examining the foal. His voice was low, meant only for the ranch owner's ears, but in the quiet of the barn it seemed to echo. "The foal has a severe neurological condition. His legs aren't responding as they should." Thomas Wilson, a man whose 50 years of ranching had etched deep lines around his eyes, nodded solemnly. His calloused hands gripped the wooden railing of the stall until his knuckles turned white. "What are our options, Doc?" The veterinarian's hesitation spoke volumes. "There aren't many, I'm afraid. With this condition, most foals don't make it. They can't stand to nurse, can't move to regulate their temperature. The kindest thing might be to... no." The word came not from Thomas, but from his daughter, Emma. At 17, she had the Wilson stubborn streak and a connection with the horses that sometimes bordered on uncanny. She had been standing in the shadows, her presence almost forgotten until now. "We're not giving up on him." Dr. Marshall sighed, his face softening at the sight of Emma's determined expression. "Emma, I understand how you feel, but you have to be realistic. This foal is suffering, and without the ability to stand, his chances are—" "I don't care about chances," Emma interrupted, moving into the stall to kneel beside the foal. Her hand gently stroked his neck, and the little one responded with a weak nicker. "Look at him. He's fighting, and Bella hasn't given up either." She glanced up at the mare, who stood watchfully over them both. "We just need to help them." Thomas exchanged a look with the veterinarian, a silent communication born from years of difficult decisions on the ranch, but there was something in his daughter's eyes, a fierce determination that reminded him so much of her mother, gone now 5 years to cancer, that made him pause. "What would it take?" Thomas finally asked, turning back to Dr. Marshall. "If we were to try, what would the foal need?" The vet ran a hand through his graying hair. "Round-the-clock care, assistance to stand and nurse, physical therapy for his legs, and even then, Thomas, I can't promise anything. The odds are stacked against him." "But it's possible," Emma pressed, still cradling the foal's head. "There's a chance." Dr. Marshall nodded reluctantly. "A small one, yes." That was all Emma needed to hear. "Then we'll take it. I'll do whatever it takes." Thomas knew that look. It was the same one his wife had worn when doctors gave her 6 months and she'd responded by fighting for 2 years. The memory made his chest tighten, but also filled him with a bittersweet pride. "All right," he said finally. "We'll try." As the vet gave detailed instructions about care, feeding, and exercises, Emma barely heard him. Her focus was entirely on the foal, his chest rising and falling with each breath, and on Bella, who hadn't left her baby's side despite the crowd of humans invading their space. "I'm going to call him Miracle," Emma whispered to the foal, "because that's what you're going to be." That night marked the beginning of what the ranch hands would later call the impossible vigil. Emma set up camp in the stall, a sleeping bag rolled out on a bed of clean hay. Thomas brought her dinner on a tray, watching as his daughter methodically massaged the foal's legs, just as Dr. Marshall had shown her. "You should get some sleep," he told her, knowing full well his advice would be ignored. Emma nodded absently, her hands never pausing in their gentle manipulation of Miracle's front leg. "I will. I just want to finish his exercises first." Thomas left her there under the watchful eye of Bella, who seemed to understand that this human was trying to help her baby. The mare stood guard, occasionally lowering her head to nuzzle Emma's shoulder or check on her foal. Throughout that long night, Emma woke every 2 hours, helping Miracle position himself to nurse from Bella. It was awkward and difficult. The foal couldn't stand, so Emma had to support his weight while guiding him to his mother's milk. Bella, for her part, showed a patience that amazed even Thomas when he came to check on them in the early morning hours. "She knows," Emma said simply, when her father commented on the mare's behavior. "She knows we're trying to save him." Days passed in a blur of exhaustion and hope. Emma barely left the stall, only stepping out when her father insisted she take a shower or eat a proper meal at the house. She slept in broken segments, always alert to Miracle's needs. At school, her teachers noticed her fatigue, but also the new spark of purpose that seemed to drive her forward despite her exhaustion. 1 week turned into 2, and still, Miracle couldn't stand on his own. But there were small improvements. His legs showed more strength during the therapy sessions, and he began to try to rise by himself, managing to lift his chest off the ground before collapsing back into the hay. "It's progress," Emma insisted when Dr. Marshall came for a follow-up visit. "He's getting stronger." The vet seemed surprised by what he saw. "He is doing better than I expected," he admitted, watching as Miracle attempted once again to rise. "But, Emma, he's still got a long way to go. And even if he does manage to stand eventually, he may never walk normally." Emma's jaw set in that familiar, stubborn line. "He will. I know he will." On the 15th day, Thomas found his daughter in tears. For a moment, his heart sank, thinking the worst had happened. But then he saw Miracle, wobbling precariously on shaking legs, actually standing, while Bella nickered encouragement. "He did it," Emma sobbed, her face streaked with tears of joy. "Dad, he stood up on his own." Thomas felt a lump form in his throat as he watched the foal take one shaky step, then another, before his legs gave out and he sank back to the straw. But this time, it wasn't a collapse of defeat. It was simply the fatigue of a hard-won victory. "Well, I'll be damned," Thomas whispered, wrapping an arm around his daughter's shoulders. "That little fighter might just make it after all." The news spread quickly around the ranch. The hands, who had been quietly betting on how long Emma's vigil would last before reality set in, now came by the stall regularly to check on Miracle's progress. Each small step was celebrated as a major triumph, not just for the foal, but for the girl who had refused to give up on him. Bella, too, seemed to sense the change in her foal. She grew more animated, encouraging Miracle with gentle nudges when Emma helped him to his feet. The bond between mother and baby grew stronger, mirroring the connection between Emma and the horses she had dedicated herself to saving. But for every step forward, there were setbacks. Days when Miracle seemed weaker, when his legs refused to cooperate despite Emma's best efforts. On those days, the doubt that Dr. Marshall had planted would creep back, whispering that perhaps this was all for nothing, that some battles couldn't be won no matter how much love and determination were poured into them. Yet each morning, Emma returned to the stall with renewed hope, and each day, Miracle fought alongside her. The foal's spirit, so fragile in those first days, grew stronger with each passing week until even the most skeptical ranch hand had to admit that something remarkable was happening in that corner stall of the old barn. As the first month passed, Miracle's progress continued in fits and starts. Some mornings, Emma would arrive at the barn to find him already attempting to stand, his determination matching her own. Other days, he seemed to retreat, as if the effort of the previous day had drained his limited reserves of strength. Through it all, Bella remained a constant presence, her maternal instincts seemingly heightened by her foal's struggle. "She's doing more than just nursing him," Emma explained to her father one evening as they watched Bella gently nudge Miracle to his feet. "She's teaching him, encouraging him. Look how she steps back just enough to make him work for it, but stays close enough to catch him if he falls." Thomas nodded, seeing the wisdom in the mare's actions. In his decades of breeding horses, he'd seen mothers abandon foals for less severe conditions than Miracle's, but Bella was different. Her patience seemed endless, her devotion unwavering. "She reminds me of your mother," Thomas said softly, the words escaping before he could reconsider them. He rarely spoke of Sarah, the pain of her loss still too raw even after 5 years, but watching Bella with her foal brought back memories of Sarah with Emma, that same fierce protectiveness, that same gentle guidance. Emma's eyes glistened with tears, but she didn't look away from the horses. "I think about her every day I'm in here with them. She would have loved Miracle." "Yes, she would have," Thomas agreed, resting a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "And she would have been so proud of you, Emma." The quiet moment was interrupted by a commotion as Miracle, wobbling on his unsteady legs, took 3 consecutive steps toward the stall door before his knees buckled. Both Emma and Thomas gasped, then broke into applause as if they'd witnessed an Olympic feat. In many ways they had. Word of Miracle's fight spread beyond the ranch. Dr. Marshall, initially skeptical, now arrived with a camera to document the foal's progress for a case study. Local children began asking their parents to drive by Willow Creek Ranch, hoping for a glimpse of the miracle horse they'd heard about. 6 weeks into Miracle's journey, Emma sat cross-legged in the straw, updating the journal she'd been keeping. Each day's entry included details about the foal's therapy, his attempts at standing and walking, his nursing schedule, and any new developments. Today's entry contained exciting news. Miracle had walked the entire length of the stall without falling. "He's getting stronger every day," she wrote, glancing up at Bella, who stood watchfully over her foal as he slept. "And so much of it is because of his mother. I've never seen such dedication." As spring warmed into summer, Emma's school year ended, allowing her to devote even more time to Miracle's rehabilitation. The therapy evolved from simple standing exercises to guided walks around the barn, with Emma supporting the foal's hindquarters with a special sling Dr. Marshall had provided. "The goal is to build his muscle memory," the vet explained, demonstrating how to properly position the sling. "His brain knows what to do, but his body doesn't always cooperate. Every successful step reinforces the neural pathways that will eventually let him walk normally." Emma followed the instructions meticulously, leading Miracle on slow, deliberate walks several times each day. Bella always walked alongside them, her pace matched to her foal's halting progress, her eyes never leaving her baby. The summer heat sometimes made the work unbearable, with sweat dripping into Emma's eyes as she guided Miracle through his exercises. On particularly sweltering days, Thomas would bring cold lemonade to the barn, watching with a mixture of pride and concern as his daughter pushed through her exhaustion. "You need to take care of yourself too," he reminded her, offering a glass of the ice-cold drink. "Miracle won't benefit if you work yourself to collapse." Emma took the lemonade gratefully, her arms trembling slightly from the effort of supporting the growing foal. "I know, Dad, but we're making such good progress, I don't want to lose momentum." Thomas understood his daughter's devotion, but he also saw the toll it was taking. Emma had lost weight, and dark circles had formed under her eyes from the constant vigilance. While the ranch hands helped when they could, the bulk of Miracle's care still fell to Emma. "I'm hiring some help," Thomas announced one evening at dinner. "Someone to spell you with Miracle so you can get some proper rest." Emma started to protest, but Thomas raised a hand to stop her. "This isn't negotiable, Emma. You've done amazing work, but everyone needs backup. Even your mother knew when to accept help." The mention of her mother silenced Emma's objections. She knew her father was right. She was pushing herself too hard. "Okay," she conceded, "but whoever it is has to follow our routine exactly. Miracle gets confused when things change too much." The help came in the form of Lily Chen, a veterinary student interning with Dr. Marshall for the summer. With her quiet competence and genuine interest in Miracle's case, she quickly earned Emma's trust. The two girls established a rotation that allowed Emma to sleep through the night for the first time in months. "Bella was hesitant with me at first," Lily told Emma as they watched Miracle attempt to trot, a jerky, uncoordinated movement that nevertheless represented incredible progress. "But now she seems to understand I'm part of the team. It's like she's included me in her circle of trust." Emma nodded, understanding completely. "She's smarter than most people give horses credit for. She knows you're helping her baby." With Lily sharing the workload, Emma found time to address another aspect of Miracle's development: socialization. Though the foal was growing stronger physically, his isolation in the stall had limited his exposure to other horses and the wider world of the ranch. "He needs to learn how to be a horse," Emma explained to her father as she outlined her plan to introduce Miracle to a small paddock adjacent to the barn. "Bella can teach him a lot, but he also needs to experience the world beyond those four walls." Thomas agreed, and together they prepared the paddock, ensuring the ground was level and free of hazards that might cause Miracle to stumble. They built a gentle ramp to help the foal navigate the small step from the barn to the outside world. The day of Miracle's first venture outdoors was treated like a celebration. Ranch hands paused in their work to watch as Emma and Lily slowly guided the foal down the ramp, with Bella following attentively behind. Miracle's reaction to the open space was a mixture of caution and wonder. His ears swiveled in all directions, taking in the new sounds while his nostrils flared at the rush of fresh scents. At first, he stayed close to his mother, seeking her reassurance in this unfamiliar environment. But gradually, with Bella's gentle encouragement, he began to explore. Each step was still labored, his gait still awkward, but there was a new confidence in his movements. "Look at him," Emma whispered to Lily, not wanting to break the spell of the moment. "He knows he's getting better." As they watched, Miracle lowered his head to taste his first grass, then raised it again with what almost looked like a smile. The sunlight caught his chestnut coat, highlighting the muscles that had developed through weeks of determined effort. "You know," Lily said thoughtfully, "in vet school, they teach us to be practical, to recognize when treatment isn't working and when it's time to let go. But watching him now makes me wonder how many animals could have thrived if someone had just given them the chance you gave Miracle." Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but these were tears of pride, not sadness. "Everyone deserves a fighting chance," she said simply, "especially when they're fighting as hard as he is." In the paddock, Miracle took another wobbly step forward, then another, his mother moving protectively at his side. Together they walked into the sunshine, leaving behind the shadows of doubt that had once threatened to end his journey before it had truly begun. Summer days stretched long at Willow Creek Ranch, with the sun hanging high in the sky until well into the evening. These extended daylight hours became precious time for Miracle's continued rehabilitation. Each day brought new achievements, small but significant victories in the foal's battle to overcome his condition. By mid-July, Miracle could walk the perimeter of the small paddock without assistance. Though his gait remained uneven, his back legs sometimes crossing awkwardly as if his body was still learning to follow his brain's commands. It's like watching a toddler learn to run before they've mastered walking, Dr. Marshall observed during one of his now weekly visits. He crouched in the paddock, recording Miracle's movements with a critical eye. His determination is outpacing his physical development. Emma beamed with pride. Isn't that exactly what we want? That fighting spirit. The vet smiled, acknowledging her point. It is. But we also need to be careful. If he pushes too hard too fast, he could injure himself and set back all the progress you've made. This warning led to a new phase in Miracle's training, learning patience. Emma and Lily devised games that rewarded the foal for controlled movements rather than speed. They created obstacle courses with ground poles set just inches above the earth, forcing Miracle to lift his feet deliberately with each step. Bella, ever attentive, would demonstrate first, stepping high over each pole with exaggerated care, then waiting as her foal attempted to mimic her movements. She's literally teaching him, Lily marveled one afternoon as they watched this impromptu lesson. I've studied animal behavior for 3 years, and I've never seen anything quite like this level of intentional instruction. Emma nodded, having long ago accepted that the bond between Bella and Miracle transcended ordinary maternal care. She knows exactly what he needs, sometimes before even we do. This became especially apparent one stormy night when a summer thunderstorm rolled across the valley with unexpected ferocity. The thunder boomed so loudly it seemed to shake the very foundations of the barn, and lightning illuminated the stalls in sharp, frightening flashes. Emma, who had been at the house when the storm hit, raced to the barn in the downpour, worried about how Miracle would handle the commotion. What she found stopped her in her tracks. Bella had positioned herself against the wall of the stall, creating a protected corner where Miracle could shelter. The foal stood pressed against his mother's side, his head tucked beneath her neck, completely shielded from the storm's visual assault. Bella's body absorbed the tremors that ran through her baby with each thunderclap, her steady presence a calming influence that no human comfort could have replicated. Emma stayed in the doorway, rain dripping from her hair and clothes, unwilling to intrude on this private moment between mother and child. She realized then that for all their therapeutic exercises and rehabilitation techniques, the most powerful healing force in Miracle's life was standing right beside him, had been from the very beginning. As July turned to August, the heat intensified, bringing new challenges. The dry weather turned the paddock dusty, irritating Miracle's sensitive airways and causing him to develop a slight cough. Dr. Marshall prescribed a treatment that required Emma to administer breathing treatments twice daily, a process that Miracle thoroughly disliked. "I know, buddy, I know," Emma soothed, holding the nebulizer mask near the foal's nostrils as he tossed his head in protest. "Just a few more minutes." What surprised everyone was Bella's response to these treatments. The first time Emma tried to administer the medication, Miracle fought so hard that it seemed impossible to continue. Then, as if understanding the necessity, Bella positioned herself in the corner of the stall, creating a natural barrier that gently restrained her foal. With one side of his body pressed against the wall and the other against his mother, Miracle had little room to resist. Bella lowered her head next to his, her breath syncing with his, until the foal calmed, allowing Emma to complete the treatment. "Did you train her to do that?" Thomas asked in amazement when Emma recounted the story. Emma shook her head. "She just knew. It's like she understands everything that's happening." This intuitive connection between mare and foal became the subject of discussion beyond the ranch. Dr. Marshall mentioned Miracle's case at a veterinary conference, sharing videos of Bella's teaching behaviors and protective strategies. Soon, a researcher from the state university contacted Thomas requesting permission to observe and document the remarkable relationship. "They want to write a paper about them," Thomas told Emma one evening, handing her the formal letter of request. "Something about advanced maternal behavior in equines facing developmental adversity." Emma read the letter with mixed feelings. On one hand, she was proud that others recognized how special Bella and Miracle were. On the other, she worried about turning their recovery journey into a scientific spectacle. "What do you think, Dad? Should we allow it?" Thomas considered the question carefully. It might help other horses someday, other foals with conditions like Miracle's. In the end, they agreed to limited observation sessions, with strict conditions that would prioritize Miracle's well-being over research needs. Dr. Eliza Brennan, the animal behaviorist leading the study, arrived in late August, her quiet enthusiasm and genuine respect for the horses quickly winning Emma's approval. "What you've all accomplished here is remarkable," Dr. Brennan said after her first day of observation. "But what's truly fascinating is how much of it has been driven by Bella herself. She's not just nurturing, she's problem-solving, adapting her strategies as Miracle's needs change." Emma felt a surge of validation, hearing a scientist confirm what she had known instinctively. "She's never given up on him, not for a single moment." "That's actually quite unusual," Dr. Brennan explained. "In the wild, mares sometimes abandon foals with severe physical limitations. It's a harsh but natural selection process. Bella's continued investment in a foal that, frankly, would not have survived without human intervention goes against typical evolutionary behaviors." Emma frowned slightly at this clinical assessment. Maybe love isn't just about evolutionary advantage. Dr. Brennan smiled, her expression softening. "Perhaps not. Or perhaps what we're witnessing is the evolution of something deeper than physical survival, the development of emotional bonds that transcend basic instinct. Either way, it's extraordinary." As summer began to wane, bringing cooler mornings and earlier sunsets, Miracle faced perhaps his greatest challenge yet. Emma had been gradually expanding his world, leading him on short walks beyond the paddock to explore the ranch. These expeditions had gone well, with Miracle growing more confident with each new experience. Then came the day Emma decided it was time for Miracle to meet the rest of the herd. Thomas had kept the other horses in a separate pasture throughout Miracle's recovery, wanting to give the foal space and time to heal without the potential stress of herd dynamics. But if Miracle was ever to live a normal horse's life, this introduction was necessary. "Are you sure he's ready?" Lily asked, helping Emma prepare for the meeting by grooming Miracle until his coat gleamed. Emma nodded, though her stomach churned with anxiety. "Dr. Marshall says his physical development has plateaued. He's as strong now as he's likely to get, and Dr. Brennan thinks the social interaction will be good for his mental development." The plan was to bring two of the gentlest mares from the herd to meet Miracle in a controlled setting before attempting a full integration. Thomas selected Willow, an older mare known for her calm demeanor, and Daisy, a middle-aged horse who had shown maternal tendencies toward younger animals in the past. What no one had fully anticipated was Bella's reaction to these intruders in her and Miracle's private domain. As the two mares approached the paddock fence, Bella's ears flattened against her head, and she positioned herself between them and her foal, her posture unmistakably defensive. "Oh no," Emma whispered, recognizing the signs of potential aggression. This might have been a mistake. The air crackled with tension as Bella pawed at the ground, her message clear. No one was getting near her baby without her approval. Miracle, sensing his mother's anxiety, pressed close to her flank, his hard-won confidence suddenly evaporating in the face of this new challenge. Thomas moved forward, his experienced hands ready to intervene if Bella's protective instincts escalated to aggression. But Emma held up her hand, signaling him to wait. "Let's give her a minute," she said softly. "She's not attacking, she's assessing." Indeed, Bella's initial defensive posture was gradually shifting. Her ears, pinned flat against her head moments before, now flicked forward and back as she studied the two mares. She maintained her position between them and Miracle, but the aggressive pawing had stopped. Emma, drawing on everything she'd learned about horse behavior over the years, recognized that this was a crucial moment, not just for Miracle's social development, but for Bella as well. The mare had spent months in an isolated bubble with her foal, her entire existence centered on his care and protection. Asking her to suddenly share that responsibility to trust others with his safety was perhaps asking too much too soon. "I think we need to adjust our approach," Emma said, moving slowly toward Bella. "We're thinking about this from a human perspective, but horses have their own ways of building trust." Thomas nodded, understanding his daughter's insight. "What do you suggest?" Emma considered for a moment. "Let's take Bella to meet them first without Miracle. Let her establish her own relationship with Willow and Daisy before we introduce them to her foal." This revised strategy proved effective. Over the next few days, Emma worked with Bella separately, leading her to the pasture fence where the other mares grazed. Lily stayed with Miracle during these brief separations, continuing his physical therapy and keeping him company. At first, Bella was reluctant to leave her foal, constantly looking back toward the barn with obvious anxiety. But gradually, she began to accept these short absences, especially as she became more familiar with the other horses. "Look at her body language now," Dr. Brennan observed on the fourth day, as Bella touched noses with Willow across the fence. "She's relaxed, curious even. There's no defensiveness in her posture." Emma smiled, feeling a wave of pride for the mare's adaptability. She's figuring out that they're not threats. A week after the initial failed introduction, they tried again. This time, Emma brought Miracle to the fence line, where Bella was already comfortably interacting with Willow and Daisy. The foal's reaction was a mixture of trepidation and curiosity. He stayed close to Emma's side, his body tense but his ears pricked forward with interest. When Bella saw her foal approaching, she immediately moved to his side, but her posture remained calm. She nickered softly, a sound that seemed to reassure Miracle. Slowly, the foal moved forward, stretching his neck to sniff at Willow, who responded with gentle interest. "That's it," Emma whispered, barely daring to breathe as the horses engaged in their careful social dance. "Nice and easy." The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Daisy, who had been watching from a few steps back, approached the fence and extended her neck toward Miracle. Instead of retreating, the foal leaned forward to meet her. To everyone's surprise, Daisy made a soft nickering sound, the same tone mares use with their own foals, and Miracle responded with a little whicker of his own. "She's speaking to him in baby language," Dr. Brennan explained, her voice tinged with excitement, "and he's responding appropriately. This is exactly the kind of social interaction he needs." From that day forward, the integration proceeded smoothly. Miracle was allowed to interact with Willow and Daisy for longer periods each day, always with Bella present, always with Emma or Lily nearby in case his legs grew tired. His awkward gait and occasional stumbles seemed to concern the other mares not at all. They adjusted their pace to match his, slowing when he slowed, stopping when he needed to rest. "It's like they know," Lily remarked one afternoon, as they watched Miracle tentatively join in a game of mutual grooming with Daisy. "They understand he's different, but they're accepting him anyway." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "Horses are better at this than people sometimes. They don't judge difference the way we do." By early September, Miracle was ready for the next big step, joining the main pasture with the entire herd. This time, Bella showed no signs of anxiety. She seemed to understand that her foal had been accepted by the senior mares. which meant the rest of the herd would follow their lead. The day of the full integration dawned clear and cool, with just a hint of autumn in the air. Thomas had taken the precaution of removing the two most rambunctious geldings from the herd temporarily, wanting to ensure Miracle's first experience with the group would be positive. As Emma led Bella and Miracle through the gate with Lily, Thomas, and Dr. Brennan watching from the fence, she felt a strange mixture of pride and sadness. For months, Miracle had been the center of her world, his care and rehabilitation consuming her days and nights. Now he was taking a significant step toward a more independent life, one where he would be part of a social structure that didn't necessarily include her. "This is what we've been working toward," Thomas reminded her, seeing the conflict in his daughter's expression. "For him to be a horse among horses." Emma nodded, knowing her father was right. She unclipped the lead rope from Bella's halter and stepped back, giving the mare and foal space to make their own way into the pasture. Bella moved forward confidently, Miracle sticking close to her side. The herd, grazing peacefully across the rolling green expanse, raised their heads at the newcomer's approach. For a tense moment, everyone held their breath. Then Willow and Daisy broke away from the group, walking forward to greet Bella and Miracle like old friends. This welcome seemed to signal acceptance to the rest of the herd. One by one, the other horses approached, sniffing curiously at Miracle, acknowledging Bella with respectful nods and gentle nickers. The foal, though clearly overwhelmed by all the attention, stood his ground, his legs trembling slightly but holding firm. "He's doing it," Lily whispered, squeezing Emma's arm in excitement. "He's actually doing it." Indeed, Miracle was navigating his first major social challenge with remarkable poise. He followed his mother's lead, accepting the attention of the curious herd members without panic. When a younger horse came too close, snorting with excessive enthusiasm, Bella intervened with a quick warning look that sent the offender skittering away. "She's teaching him herd etiquette," Dr. Brennan observed, making notes on her ever-present clipboard. "And the others are respecting her authority where he's concerned. This is fascinating." After about 20 minutes, Emma noticed Miracle's legs beginning to tremble more noticeably. The excitement and effort of standing for so long amid the stimulation of meeting the herd was taking its toll on his still-developing muscles. Before Emma could intervene, Bella seemed to sense her foal's fatigue. She moved deliberately to a quiet spot beneath a large oak tree at the edge of the pasture and lowered herself to the ground, stretching out in the dappled shade. Miracle, clearly relieved, folded his legs carefully and lay down beside her. What happened next brought tears to Emma's eyes. Willow and Daisy positioned themselves around the resting pair, creating a protective semicircle that effectively shielded them from the rest of the herd. It was as if they had appointed themselves honorary aunts, committed to Miracle's safety and well-being. "They're forming a support network," Dr. Brennan said, her scientific tone belied by the emotion in her eyes. "It's more than just acceptance, they're actively participating in his care." Thomas put an arm around his daughter's shoulders. "Looks like Miracle has more than just you looking out for him now." Emma leaned against her father, feeling a complex mixture of emotions: joy at Miracle's acceptance, pride in how far he had come, and yes, a bittersweet acknowledgement that her role in his life was changing. "That's exactly what we wanted," she said softly. "For him to belong." As they watched from the fence, Miracle closed his eyes, his head resting against his mother's flank, surrounded by his new extended family. His journey was far from over, but he had crossed a threshold today, from being a patient to becoming part of a community. Autumn arrived at Willow Creek Ranch, painting the surrounding hills with splashes of gold and crimson. The air grew crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. For Miracle, now 5 months old, each day brought new strength and confidence. His integration into the herd had progressed beyond anyone's expectations. With the protective circle of Bella, Willow, and Daisy, expanding to include several other horses who seem to have accepted special roles in his upbringing. "It's like watching a community raise a child," Dr. Brennan remarked during one of her now bi-weekly observations. She had extended her research stay, unable to tear herself away from the remarkable social dynamics unfolding in Thomas's pasture. "See how that gelding, the bay with the star—" "That's Samson," Emma supplied. "Yes, Samson. Watch how he positions himself when the younger horses get too rowdy near Miracle. He's not related to any of them, has no direct interest in Miracle's welfare, yet he's taken on a protective role." Emma had noticed this too, the way certain herd members seemed to understand Miracle's limitations and adjust their behavior accordingly. Even more impressive was how they were helping him develop despite those limitations. The daily life of the herd, with its constant movement from grazing spots to water sources to shade trees, provided Miracle with a natural form of physical therapy far more effective than anything humans could devise. "His gait is improving," Dr. Marshall noted during his monthly checkup, watching Miracle trot across the pasture to join his mother. "There's still that hitch in his right hind leg, and he'll probably always have it to some degree, but functionally, he's doing remarkably well." Emma beamed with pride. "He ran yesterday. Actually ran, not for long and not very gracefully, but he did it." The vet shook his head in amazement. "When I first saw him, I wouldn't have bet on him surviving a week, let alone running. Whatever you're doing, keep it up." The truth was, Emma was doing less and less direct intervention with Miracle these days. Her role had shifted from primary caregiver to observer and occasional assistant. The foal still recognized her, would still come when she called, but his life now centered around the herd, around learning to be a horse from other horses. This transition, necessary and healthy as it was, sometimes left Emma feeling adrift. For months, Miracle had been the focus of her every waking moment. Now, as she stood at the pasture fence watching him interact confidently with his equine family, a complicated mix of joy and loss washed over her. "It's like sending your kid off to college, isn't it?" Lily asked one afternoon, accurately reading Emma's expression as they watched Miracle from a distance. "You're happy they're growing up, but you miss being needed." Emma smiled ruefully. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who's been watching you with him all summer," Lily replied. "It's normal, you know. You've been his human mother as much as Bella's been his horse mother. Letting go is supposed to be hard." This perspective helped, but Emma still found herself spending extra time at the pasture fence, watching Miracle's progress with a mixture of maternal pride and wistfulness. Thomas noticed his daughter's melancholy and, in his practical way, offered a solution. "Winter's coming," he said one evening over dinner. "The herd will need to be moved to the lower pastures in the barn soon. Miracle will need special attention to get through his first cold season, especially with his condition." Emma looked up from her barely touched plate. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm saying there's still work to be done with that foal. Different work maybe, but important nonetheless. Dr. Marshall mentioned he might need special shoeing to support that right hind leg on the harder winter ground, and we'll need to monitor how he handles the cold, whether it affects his mobility." A spark reignited in Emma's eyes. "I've been reading about therapeutic shoeing for horses with gait abnormalities. There are some new approaches that might help him." Thomas nodded, satisfied to see some of his daughter's purpose returning. "Sounds like a project worth pursuing." As if nature had been eavesdropping on their conversation, the first real cold snap hit the ranch the very next week. The temperature plummeted overnight, and morning arrived with a delicate layer of frost silvering the pasture grass. Emma, bundled in her warmest jacket, headed out earlier than usual, concerned about how Miracle would handle the sudden change. She found the herd clustered together for warmth near a windbreak of pine trees. Miracle was at the center of the group, sandwiched between Bella and Willow, their bodies creating a living barrier against the chill. As Emma approached, she noticed something concerning. Miracle's right hind leg, the one that had always given him the most trouble, was held slightly off the ground, as if bearing weight on it was uncomfortable. "Hey, buddy," she called softly. Miracle's ears pricked forward at the sound of her voice, and he nickered in greeting, but didn't move from his sheltered position. Emma entered the pasture, making her way carefully through the herd to reach the foal. As she got closer, she could see him shivering slightly despite the warmth of the horses surrounding him. When she ran her hand along his right hind leg, she felt an unusual tension in the muscles, a tightness that hadn't been there before. The cold's making his muscles contract, she realized aloud. Bella watched her attentively, as if understanding her concern. Emma made a quick decision. "Let's get you somewhere warmer until this passes." She slipped a halter over Miracle's head, speaking soothingly as she worked. "Come on, boy, just for a little while." To her relief, Bella didn't object when Emma began leading Miracle away. In fact, the mare followed closely, her breath creating small clouds in the frosty air. The rest of the herd watched with what seemed like understanding as the trio made their way across the pasture toward the barn. Inside, the temperature was noticeably warmer. Emma led Miracle to a clean stall bedded with fresh straw, Bella following of her own accord. Once inside, Emma removed the halter and began gently massaging Miracle's tight muscles, working from his hip down to the affected leg. "We need to keep these muscles loose," she explained to Bella, who stood watchfully nearby. "The cold makes them contract, and that pulls on his joints in ways that hurt him." As she worked, Emma's mind raced with plans and adjustments. Miracle would need a warmer environment during the coldest days, perhaps specialized blankets designed for therapeutic purposes. The idea of bringing him to the barn each night wasn't practical long-term. He needed to remain with the herd for his social development. Perhaps a sheltered area in the pasture, accessible only to him and a few select horses. By the time Thomas came looking for her, Emma had developed a comprehensive winter care plan for Miracle. Her earlier melancholy had been replaced by renewed purpose, her notebook filled with diagrams and supply lists. "So I see you found your next project," Thomas observed, leaning against the stall door. Emma looked up, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "I've been thinking too small, Dad. Miracle's physical therapy isn't over, it's just entering a new phase. And with winter coming, we need to adapt everything." Thomas smiled, recognizing the return of his daughter's determination. "I thought you might see it that way." The cold snap continued for 3 days, during which Emma implemented the first stages of her winter care plan. She worked with the ranch's farrier to design special shoes for Miracle that would provide additional support and traction on frozen ground. She researched and ordered a custom-made therapeutic blanket that would keep his muscles warm without restricting his movement. Most importantly, she designed and, with Thomas and the ranch hand's help, constructed a special shelter in the lower pasture where the herd would spend the winter months. This structure, open on one side but protected from the prevailing winds, included a heated floor panel in one section, a place where Miracle could stand to warm his muscles during particularly cold days. "It's like a horse sauna," Lily joked when she came to see the completed project. Emma laughed. "More like a heating pad, but yes, that's the idea." When the cold snap finally broke and warmer temperatures returned temporarily, Miracle and Bella rejoined the herd in the pasture. Emma watched anxiously as the foal trotted away, wondering if her interventions had been sufficient. To her delight, his movement seemed easier, more fluid than before. The tension in his right hind leg noticeably diminished. Dr. Brennan's research stay at Willow Creek Ranch officially ended in late October, though she promised to return periodically through the winter to continue documenting Miracle's progress. Her preliminary findings had already generated significant interest in the veterinary community, with several journals requesting papers on the unique rehabilitation case and the remarkable maternal behavior Bella had exhibited. "I'm presenting at the Equine Behavior Conference in February," she told Emma during their farewell lunch at the ranch house. "Would you consider joining me? Your first-hand observations would add tremendous value to the presentation." Emma hesitated, glancing out the kitchen window toward the pasture where Miracle now spent his days. "I'm not sure I can leave him for that long." Dr. Brennan smiled understandingly. "Think about it. The conference is still months away, and by then Miracle might be even more independent than he is now." The thought both heartened and saddened Emma. She knew the ultimate goal of all their work was for Miracle to live as normal a life as possible, which meant becoming less dependent on human intervention. Yet the prospect of him no longer needing her daily care created a hollow feeling she couldn't quite shake. Thomas, ever observant of his daughter's moods, decided it was time for a different kind of intervention. "I think you need a project that's not just about Miracle," he said one evening as they sat by the fireplace watching the first snowflakes of the season drift past the windows. Emma looked up from the equine therapy journal she'd been studying. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you've spent almost half a year focusing entirely on that foal. It's been incredible work, and I couldn't be prouder. But there's more to life, and more to you, than being Miracle's caretaker." Emma started to protest, but Thomas held up a hand. "Hear me out. Remember how you always talked about starting an equine therapy program here at the ranch? Working with kids with disabilities, giving them the kind of connection and healing you've seen with Miracle?" A spark of interest flickered in Emma's eyes. It was something she'd dreamed about for years, inspired by a program she'd volunteered with during a summer camp in her early teens. The experience had profoundly affected her, showing her the unique bond that could form between horses and children facing physical or emotional challenges. "I've been thinking about that," she admitted, "especially watching how the herd has adapted to Miracle. If horses can understand and accommodate each other's differences that way, imagine what they could do for children who feel different or left out." Thomas nodded encouragingly. "Exactly. And you've gained so much knowledge through Miracle's rehabilitation, knowledge that could help a lot of kids." The seed was planted, and over the following weeks, as winter settled in earnest over the ranch, it began to grow. Emma started researching equine therapy certification programs, speaking with directors of established programs about their experiences, and identifying which horses in their herd might be suitable for therapy work. Lily, who had decided to spend her winter break at the ranch rather than returning to her family in California, threw herself enthusiastically into the project. "This is exactly why I went into veterinary medicine," she explained as they worked together to draft a business plan for the program, to help forge these connections between animals and humans, to help heal both. The planning process gave Emma a renewed sense of purpose that extended beyond Miracle's daily care. She still spent considerable time with the foal, especially on the coldest days when his mobility was most affected, but her focus was expanding, embracing a bigger vision that had room for more than just one special horse. Miracle, for his part, continued to thrive despite the winter challenges. The special shelter Emma had designed proved effective at giving him a warm retreat on the most bitter days, and the herd's protective behaviors continued, with different horses taking turns accompanying him to the heated area when the temperature dropped dangerously low. "It's like they have a rotation system," Lily observed one particularly frigid morning as they watched from the pasture fence. "Yesterday it was Willow who stayed with him in the shelter. Today it's that older gelding. What's his name?" "Samson," Emma supplied, smiling as she watched the dignified bay horse standing patiently beside Miracle in the sheltered area. "He's been one of Miracle's biggest champions from the start." The custom therapeutic blanket Emma had ordered arrived in December, just in time for the season's first major snowstorm. Made of specialized material that reflected the horse's own body heat, while still allowing full range of motion, it provided Miracle with crucial protection during the coldest weather. "It's like a space blanket for horses," Thomas remarked, watching as Emma carefully adjusted the straps. "NASA technology in my pasture. Who would have thought?" The storm that hit the week before Christmas tested all their preparations. For 3 days, fierce winds drove snow horizontally across the ranch, creating drifts that nearly buried the fences in some places. The temperature plummeted to record lows, and even with the barn heaters running constantly, the cold seemed to seep through every crack and crevice. Emma insisted on sleeping in the barn during the worst of the storm, unwilling to leave Miracle and the other horses alone even for a night. Thomas brought her hot meals and extra blankets, acknowledging that arguing would be futile. Lily joined her for the final night. The 2 girls huddled in sleeping bags in the tack room, taking turns making rounds to check on the animals. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't found him that day?" Lily asked during one of these late-night conversations. If someone else had discovered him, or if no one had come along at all. Emma was quiet for a long moment, considering the question. "I used to think it was just luck, being in the right place at the right time. But now I'm not so sure. Sometimes it feels like Miracle came into my life for a reason, like we were meant to find each other." The storm finally broke on the 4th day, leaving behind a transformed landscape of pristine white drifts and ice-laden trees that sparkled in the returning sunlight. Emma and Lily, exhausted but satisfied that all the horses had weathered the storm safely, trudged back to the house for their first proper sleep in days. When they returned to the barn later that afternoon, they found Miracle in his stall, his right hind leg raised slightly off the ground, trembling visibly despite the warmth of his blanket. Emma's heart sank as she approached him, recognizing the signs of pain she hadn't seen in months. "The cold must have caused a setback," she murmured, running her hands gently along the leg, feeling the tightness in the muscles. All that progress. Lily moved to the other side of the stall, examining Miracle carefully. "It might not be just the cold," she said after a moment. "Look at how he's standing. He's favoring that hind leg more than usual, but he's also shifting his weight strangely in front." Emma circled around to see what Lily was indicating. Sure enough, Miracle's weight distribution was off, with unusual pressure being placed on his left foreleg to compensate for the weakness in his right hind. "He's thrown his whole body out of alignment trying to adjust to the pain," Emma realized. "It's like a chain reaction." Lily nodded. "We need to call Dr. Marshall. This could be more serious than just cold-induced muscle tension." As they waited for the veterinarian to arrive, fighting his way through snow-clogged roads, Emma sat in the stall with Miracle, massaging his tight muscles with practiced hands while speaking to him in a low, soothing voice. Bella, who had been moved to the adjoining stall during the storm, whickered anxiously over the partition, stretching her neck as far as possible to maintain contact with her foal. "It's okay," Emma told them both, trying to project a confidence she didn't entirely feel. "We've overcome worse than this. We'll figure it out together, just like always." But as the hours passed and Miracle's discomfort seemed to increase rather than diminish, doubt crept in. What if this wasn't just a temporary setback? What if the strain of the long winter had undone all their months of careful work? The thought was almost unbearable after everything they'd achieved. Dr. Marshall arrived just as dusk was settling over the snow-covered ranch, his truck crunching through the frozen lane with chains on the tires. His face, normally composed and professional, showed concern as Emma briefed him on Miracle's condition. "How long has he been like this?" he asked, setting down his medical bag and approaching the foal with careful movements. "We noticed it this afternoon when we came back to check on everyone after the storm," Emma explained, "but he seemed fine during the worst of the weather, No signs of distress beyond the usual stiffness from the cold. The vet began his examination, running experienced hands over Miracle's body, paying special attention to the troublesome right hind leg, and now the left foreleg as well. His expression grew more serious as he worked, occasionally making quiet humming sounds that did nothing to ease Emma's anxiety. "I need to get some x-rays," he finally said, straightening up. "There's definitely something going on here beyond muscle tension. I'm concerned about possible stress fractures or joint damage." Emma's stomach dropped at the words. Stress fractures could mean months of additional recovery, or worse, they could be the beginning of the end for all the progress Miracle had made. Some horses never fully recovered from such injuries, especially those with pre-existing conditions like his. "I brought the portable x-ray equipment," Dr. Marshall continued, seeing the fear in Emma's eyes. "Let's get a clearer picture of what we're dealing with before we jump to conclusions." The next hour passed in tense silence as the veterinarian took multiple x-rays of Miracle's legs. Lily assisted, holding the foal steady and comforting him through the unfamiliar and sometimes uncomfortable process. Emma found herself pacing outside the stall, too anxious to stand still, too worried to be directly involved. Thomas arrived as they were finishing up, having closed up the house for the night and brought more supplies for Emma's barn vigil. One look at his daughter's face told him everything he needed to know about the seriousness of the situation. "Dr. Marshall's reviewing the x-rays now," she told him, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. "He thinks there might be fractures." Thomas put a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Let's wait to hear what he has to say before we get ahead of ourselves." Finally, the vet emerged from the small room adjacent to the stalls where he'd set up a temporary viewing station for the x-ray images. His expression was complex, neither the relief of good news nor the gravity of the worst-case scenario Emma had been imagining. "It's not a fracture," he began, and Emma felt a rush of relief that was quickly tempered by his next words. "But there is damage to the growth plate in his right hind leg, what we call fasciitis. Essentially, the bone is growing faster than the surrounding supportive structures, creating inflammation and pain." "Is it because of his condition?" Thomas asked, always practical, always focused on understanding the root cause. Dr. Marshall nodded. "Partly. His neurological issues already created abnormal stress on that leg, but the real catalyst seems to be a recent growth spurt. His body is developing quickly now, but the leg that was already compromised couldn't adapt fast enough." "And his left front leg?" Lily asked, having joined them after settling Miracle with some pain medication. "Compensatory strain," the vet explained. "He's been shifting his weight to protect the painful hind leg, which overloaded the opposite foreleg. It's a common pattern in equine lameness. One problem creates another." Emma took a deep breath, processing this information. "What does this mean for his recovery? Is this permanent?" The question hung in the air, weighted with months of hope and effort, with countless small victories and the fear that they might now be undone. Dr. Marshall's answer was measured. "It's serious, but not necessarily catastrophic. Fasciitis in young horses can often be managed successfully with the right approach. The next few weeks will be critical, though. He needs complete rest, anti-inflammatory medication, and a carefully controlled diet to slow his growth rate temporarily." "Complete rest?" Emma repeated, thinking of how far they'd come with Miracle's mobility and independence. "You mean back to stall confinement?" "For at least 2 weeks, yes. No pasture time, no exercise beyond the absolute minimum necessary for his well-being. After that, we'll reassess and hopefully begin a very gradual return to controlled activity." The news hit Emma hard. 2 weeks might not seem long in the grand scheme of things, but for Miracle, who had finally experienced the freedom of herd life, it represented a significant setback. And what about Bella? The mare had been inseparable from her foal throughout his long recovery. How would she react to being separated again? As if reading her thoughts, Dr. Marshall added, "I'd recommend keeping Bella in with him. The stress of separation would likely do more harm than good at this point, and her presence has always had a calming effect on him." That, at least, was a relief. Emma nodded, already mentally rearranging the barn to accommodate both horses comfortably for an extended stay. "I'll need to adjust his diet," she said, thinking out loud. "Cut back on the protein to slow the growth, increase the calcium for bone support." Dr. Marshall nodded approvingly. "Exactly. I'll leave you detailed feeding guidelines, but you've got the right idea. And we'll need to monitor his pain levels carefully. If he's comfortable, he's more likely to rest as needed." As the vet packed up his equipment and prepared to leave, promising to return in 2 days to check on Miracle's progress, Emma felt a familiar determination replacing her initial fear. This was a setback, certainly, but they had faced worse odds at the beginning of Miracle's journey. If they had brought him back from the brink of death, surely they could overcome this new challenge. Lily seemed to sense the shift in her mood. "We've got this," she said firmly. "Between the two of us, we can handle round-the-clock monitoring again. And I've been reading about fasciitis in my orthopedics course. There are some new approaches to treatment that might help." Thomas, watching his daughter's expressions solidify into resolve, felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. "You girls aren't doing this alone," he said. "I'll adjust the ranch schedule so the hands can help with the regular chores. And I think it's time I called in some additional support." Emma looked up, curious. "What kind of support?" "I've been in touch with a veterinary rehabilitation specialist from Colorado State, Dr. Jennings. She's a pioneer in equine physical therapy, especially for young horses with developmental issues. I initially contacted her about your therapy program idea, but given the circumstances, I think Miracle could benefit from her expertise right now." For the first time since discovering Miracle's setback, Emma felt a flicker of genuine optimism. "You think she'd come here, in the middle of winter?" Thomas smiled. "For a case as unique as Miracle's, I think she'd swim through a frozen lake if that's what it took. These veterinary types are a dedicated bunch." Lily grinned at that. "We really are." The next morning, Emma woke early after a fitful night's sleep on the cot they'd set up in the tack room. She found Miracle alert but still clearly uncomfortable, his normally bright eyes dulled by pain despite the medication. Bella stood close beside him in the enlarged stall, her body positioned so that he could lean against her if needed. As Emma approached with Miracle's morning medication hidden in a small apple, she was struck by the tableau they presented. Mother and child, united in adversity, facing this new challenge with a quiet dignity that seemed almost human in its depth. "We're going to get through this," she promised them both, offering the apple to Miracle, who accepted it with gentle lips despite his discomfort. "It's just another step in your journey." Outside, the winter sun was rising over the snow-covered pastures, casting long blue shadows across the pristine white expanse. In the distance, the herd moved like dark silhouettes against the brilliant landscape, their breath creating clouds of steam in the frigid air. Watching them, Emma thought about Miracle's place among them, hard-won, precious, and temporarily suspended. Dr. Amelia Jennings arrived at Willow Creek Ranch 3 days after Thomas's call, driving a specialized veterinary van through the snow-packed roads with the confidence of someone who had navigated Colorado winters her entire life. She was younger than Emma had expected, perhaps in her mid-30s, with laugh lines around her eyes and a practical ponytail of auburn hair poking out from under a well-worn knit cap. "You must be Emma," she said, extending a gloved hand as she climbed down from the driver's seat. "Your father has told me so much about you and your Miracle foal that I feel like I already know you both." Emma shook the offered hand, immediately warming to the woman's direct, friendly manner. "Thank you for coming all this way, especially in this weather." Dr. Jennings waved away the thanks. "Are you kidding? A case like this is why I got into equine rehabilitation in the first place. Besides, your dad mentioned you're interested in starting a therapy program here. 2 birds, 1 stone. Thomas emerged from the barn to greet their visitor, and after quick introductions, they led Dr. Jennings to meet Miracle. The foal was having one of his better mornings, standing fairly comfortably thanks to the pain medication and anti-inflammatories Dr. Marshall had prescribed. Bella, ever vigilant, watched from the corner of the stall as the newcomer approached her baby. Dr. Jennings didn't rush the introduction. She stood quietly at the stall door, allowing Miracle to observe her before she made any move to enter his space. When she finally did step inside, her movements were slow and deliberate. Her voice a low, soothing murmur that seemed to put both horses at ease. "Well, aren't you something special?" she said to Miracle, carefully running her hands over his body in what Emma recognized as a methodical assessment disguised as casual petting. "Your mom's done an amazing job with you, hasn't she?" The specialist spent nearly an hour with Miracle, observing his stance, watching him move the few steps his confined space allowed, reviewing the x-rays Dr. Marshall had taken, and asking Emma detailed questions about his history and treatment. Throughout it all, she took notes on a small tablet, occasionally making voice recordings of her observations. Finally, she stepped out of the stall, her expression thoughtful but not discouraged. "I've seen cases like this before," she told Emma and Thomas. "Physitis is challenging, especially in a foal with pre-existing neurological issues, but it's manageable with the right approach." Dr. Marshall mentioned complete rest, Emma said, "but I'm worried about what that will mean for his muscle development after all the progress we've made." Dr. Jennings nodded understandingly. "That's a valid concern. Complete rest is necessary right now while the inflammation is acute, but rest doesn't have to mean complete immobility. There are passive range of motion exercises we can do that won't stress the growth plates, but will help maintain muscle tone and joint flexibility." Hope flickered in Emma's chest. "You can show us how to do those?" "Better than that," Dr. Jennings replied with a smile. "I'm planning to stay for at least a week to get a program established. Your father mentioned you have a guest cabin available." Thomas nodded. "It's nothing fancy, but it's warm and private." "Perfect. I've brought some specialized equipment with me. Underwater treadmill components, therapeutic laser, some custom bracing options. Between what I have and what we can improvise, I think we can set up a pretty comprehensive rehabilitation program for Miracle." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as Dr. Jennings transformed a section of the barn into a makeshift equine rehabilitation center. Under her guidance, Thomas and the ranch hands constructed a small therapeutic pool, essentially a narrow, deep trough with a ramp entry, where Miracle could experience the benefits of water therapy without putting weight on his compromised legs. "Water provides natural resistance without impact," Dr. Jennings explained to Emma and Lily as they filled the pool for the first time. "It's like strength training without the stress on joints and bones. Plus, the hydrostatic pressure helps reduce inflammation." Getting Miracle accustomed to the water was a challenge initially. The foal eyed the strange new structure with suspicion, balking at the ramp despite Bella's encouraging nickering from nearby. It took 3 attempts and a trail of carrot pieces leading into the shallow end before he cautiously stepped in, eyes wide with uncertainty. "That's it," Emma encouraged from beside the pool, where she stood in tall rubber boots, ready to support him if needed. "Just a little deeper. Good boy." Once Miracle discovered that the water actually eased the discomfort in his legs, his reluctance faded. By the 3rd day of therapy, he was willingly entering the pool, standing contentedly in the chest-deep water, while Emma and Dr. Jennings performed gentle stretching exercises on his legs. "He's a smart one," Dr. Jennings remarked, carefully extending Miracle's right hind leg through its range of motion under the water. "He's figured out that this helps. That's going to make our job a lot easier. The daily routine expanded to include other therapeutic approaches. Dr. Jennings introduced a specialized red light therapy device that promoted tissue healing when applied to Miracle's inflamed growth plates. She taught Emma and Lily massage techniques specifically designed for young horses with developmental issues. And perhaps most importantly, she helped them establish a nutritional plan that would support bone health while temporarily slowing the rapid growth that had triggered the crisis. The goal isn't to stunt his growth, she explained, reviewing the feed charts she'd created. It's to slow it down just enough that his body can catch up with itself. Think of it as giving his supportive structures, tendons, ligaments, muscles, time to strengthen before the bones extend further. Throughout this intensive intervention, Bella remained a constant, calming presence. The mare seemed to understand that these strange, new activities were helping her foal, and she watched each therapy session with alert interest, occasionally approaching to check on Miracle but never interfering. "She's quite remarkable," Dr. Jennings commented one evening, as they observed Bella gently encouraging Miracle to walk the few steps back to their stall after a particularly tiring therapy session. "I've worked with hundreds of horses, and I've rarely seen this level of maternal awareness and cooperation." Emma nodded, thinking of all the ways Bella had defied conventional expectations throughout Miracle's journey. She's never given up on him, not for a moment. "That kind of bond?" Dr. Jennings shook her head in wonder. "It's what makes this work worthwhile, you know. Seeing that connection, being allowed to be part of it in some small way." As the week progressed, subtle improvements began to appear in Miracle's condition. The inflammation in his right hind leg decreased visibly, and his weight distribution became more balanced as the pain subsided. He began putting more weight on the affected leg, and his overall comfort level improved even as they gradually reduced his pain medication. "The passive range of motion exercises are working," Lily observed on the 5th day, as she and Emma performed the now familiar routine of gentle stretches and flexions on Miracle's legs. "Feel how much smoother that movement is compared to 3 days ago." Emma nodded, carefully extending Miracle's right hind leg and noting the increased flexibility and reduced resistance. Dr. Jennings was right about the water therapy too. "His muscle tone is so much better than I expected after a week of confinement." The specialist, who had been observing from just outside the stall, smiled at the assessment. "You both have excellent instincts. Have either of you ever considered specializing in equine rehabilitation?" Lily laughed. "I'm still trying to get through basic veterinary courses, but maybe someday." Emma, however, felt something click into place at the question, a sense of rightness, of possibility. Her interest in equine therapy had always focused on the emotional and psychological benefits horses could provide to humans. But working with Dr. Jennings had opened her eyes to another dimension of healing, the physical rehabilitation of the horses themselves. "I think I might," she said softly, more to herself than to the others. "I think I might really like that." When Dr. Jennings departed after her week at Willow Creek Ranch, she left behind more than just a rehabilitation program for Miracle. She had planted a seed in Emma's mind that was already beginning to sprout, a possible future that combined her love for horses with her newfound passion for rehabilitation work. "You have a gift for this," the specialist told Emma on her last morning, as they completed Miracle's therapy session together. "You notice things most people would miss, and you have the patience and determination this kind of work requires." Emma felt herself flush with pleasure at the praise. "I've had a good teacher this week." Dr. Jennings smiled, adjusting the therapeutic leg wrap she was applying to Miracle's right hind leg. "It's more than that. Some aspects of this work can be taught, but the instinct, that connection you have with horses, that's something you're born with." Before leaving, Dr. Jennings provided Emma with a comprehensive plan for continuing Miracle's rehabilitation. The schedule included daily hydrotherapy, gradual increases in controlled exercise, specialized massage techniques, and a timeline for slowly reintroducing him to the herd. She also left Emma with something equally valuable, an open invitation to shadow her at her Colorado facility during the summer. "Think about it," she said, handing Emma her card with a personal number scribbled on the back. "My summer internship program is competitive, but I'd welcome your application. You could learn a lot, and not just about cases like Miracle's." Emma tucked the card carefully into her pocket, already knowing she would be applying. The idea of spending a summer learning from Dr. Jennings, seeing a variety of rehabilitation cases and gaining formal training in techniques she'd only just begun to explore, was exhilarating. The next 2 weeks passed in a carefully structured routine of therapy, rest, and monitoring as Emma and Lily implemented Dr. Jennings' rehabilitation plan. Miracle responded well to the consistent care, his condition improving steadily as the inflammation in his growth plates subsided. By the time Dr. Marshall returned for his follow-up examination, the foal was standing squarely on all 4 legs, the pain-induced compensation in his posture almost entirely resolved. "I'm impressed," the veterinarian admitted, reviewing the charts Emma had kept documenting Miracle's progress. "When I diagnosed the fasciitis, I was concerned we might be looking at long-term lameness issues, but his response to treatment has been remarkable." Emma couldn't help but feel a surge of pride, both in Miracle's resilience and in her own part in his recovery. Dr. Jennings said his body just needed time to catch up with itself. The therapy helped, but a lot of it was just managing his growth rate and giving his supportive structures time to strengthen. Dr. Marshall nodded thoughtfully. "Still, the quality of care makes a difference. The rehabilitation program you implemented was exactly what he needed." He closed his examination kit, his expression approving. "I think we can start transitioning him back to limited turnout soon, as Dr. Jennings suggested in her notes. Short periods at first, in a small paddock, gradually building up to longer times." The prospect of Miracle returning to even limited outdoor activity lifted everyone's spirits. The foal had been patient throughout his confinement, but lately he had begun showing signs of restlessness, looking longingly toward the barn doors whenever they were opened, nickering hopefully at the sight of the other horses in the distance. "He misses his friends," Emma told Bella, stroking the mare's neck as they watched Miracle pace his stall one afternoon. "And I bet you miss the open air too, don't you, girl?" Bella's ears flicked forward at Emma's voice, her intelligent eyes seeming to understand every word. Throughout the ordeal, the mare had remained Miracle's most constant support, adjusting to the confined quarters without complaint, standing patiently during his therapy sessions, and providing comfort when the treatments caused momentary discomfort. Dr. Brennan, who had continued to check in regularly via video calls, was fascinated by this sustained maternal dedication. "Most mares begin naturally distancing from their foals around this age," she explained during one of their conversations. "It's a normal part of equine development, the gradual transition toward independence. But Bella seems to have adapted her maternal behavior to accommodate Miracle's special needs." Emma had noticed this too, the way Bella balanced nurturing with encouragement, how she would sometimes step back and let Miracle struggle a bit with a challenging therapy exercise before intervening if he became too frustrated. It was as if she instinctively understood the delicate balance between protection and growth that his condition required. The day finally arrived for Miracle's first venture back outside. Dr. Marshall had approved a brief 20-minute session in the small paddock adjacent to the barn, enough to let him feel the fresh air and move in a larger space, but not so long that he would risk overexertion. Emma prepared meticulously for this milestone, checking the ground for any hazards, ensuring the footing was neither too hard nor too slippery, and setting up a comfortable observation area where she could monitor every moment of Miracle's outdoor time. Lily arrived early to help, bringing a camera to document this important step in his recovery. "Are you nervous?" she asked Emma, noticing how her friend kept rechecking things that had already been thoroughly prepared. Emma nodded, adjusting the gate latch for the third time. "A little. We've come so far, and I don't want anything to set him back." "He'll be fine," Lily assured her. "He's got you, he's got Bella, and he's got his own incredible determination. Plus, we're only talking about 20 minutes in a controlled environment." When everything was ready, Emma brought Bella out first, allowing the mare to inspect the paddock and become comfortable with the space before Miracle joined her. Bella moved calmly around the perimeter, occasionally lowering her head to graze on the sparse winter grass, but mostly seeming to assess the area as if conducting her own safety check. Finally, it was time. Emma led Miracle from the barn, his steps measured but eager, his ears pricked forward with interest at the prospect of freedom after weeks of confinement. At the paddock gate, she removed his halter and stepped back, holding her breath as the foal paused, seemingly overwhelmed by the sudden expansion of his world. For a long moment, Miracle stood motionless, his nostrils flaring as he took in the scents of open air and earth. Then, with a soft nicker, Bella called to him from the center of the paddock. The sound seemed to break his trance, and Miracle moved forward, his gait cautious but remarkably steady, as he joined his mother in the open space. What happened next brought tears to Emma's eyes. Instead of immediately beginning to graze or explore as most horses would, Bella initiated what could only be described as a careful assessment of her foal's mobility. She walked beside him, matching her pace to his, occasionally bumping him gently as if testing his balance. When he responded confidently, she increased her speed slightly, encouraging him to move a little faster, a little more freely. "She's testing him," Lily whispered, recording the interaction, "making sure he's really ready for this." Emma nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The bond between mare and foal, forged through months of adversity and recovery, was displaying itself in ways that defied conventional understanding of equine behavior. It wasn't just maternal protectiveness anymore, it was a partnership, a shared journey of healing and growth. As the allotted 20 minutes came to an end, Emma approached the paddock fence, halter in hand, prepared for potential resistance from Miracle at the prospect of returning to confinement. To her surprise, both horses came willingly when she called, as if understanding that this freedom was just the first step in a gradual return to normalcy. "Good boy," she murmured, slipping the halter over Miracle's head and giving him an appreciative pat. "You did so well today. And there'll be more tomorrow, I promise." Leading them back to the barn, Emma felt a profound sense of accomplishment mingled with anticipation for the future, not just Miracle's future, but her own. The path ahead suddenly seemed clearer than it had ever been before, illuminated by the lessons of determination, patience, and healing she had learned from a special foal and his extraordinary mother. Spring arrived at Willow Creek Ranch in a rush of green, the snow-covered pastures transforming almost overnight into verdant expanses dotted with wildflowers. For Emma, watching from the fence as Miracle galloped across the main pasture with the herd, it seemed impossible that just months earlier they had been fighting to save his life yet again. The foal, though at nearly a year old he could hardly be called that anymore, had made a complete recovery from the physitis that had threatened his hard-won mobility. His gait still carried that distinctive hitch in his right hind leg, a permanent reminder of his early struggles, but it did nothing to dampen his spirit or limit his activities. If anything, the challenges he had overcome seemed to have instilled in him a special zest for life, an appreciation for every moment of freedom and movement. "He's something else, isn't he?" Thomas said, joining his daughter at the fence. "Not many horses could have come through all that and ended up so well adjusted." Emma nodded, her heart swelling with pride as she watched Miracle playfully engage one of the younger horses in a brief race across the field. He never gave up, not once through the whole journey. "Neither did you," Thomas pointed out, resting a weathered hand on his daughter's shoulder. "You two are a lot alike that way." The comparison made Emma smile. There was truth in it. The months of caring for Miracle had revealed a depth of determination in herself that she hadn't fully recognized before. That same determination was now propelling her toward a new chapter in her life. In her pocket was the acceptance letter from Dr. Jennings's summer internship program, and beside it, an enrollment confirmation for the specialized equine rehabilitation certification course she would begin in the fall. "Have you told him yet?" Thomas asked, nodding toward Miracle, who had paused in his play to graze beside Bella. The mare, though still attentive to her son, had gradually allowed him more independence as his health improved, a natural evolution of their extraordinary bond. "Not yet," Emma admitted. "It feels silly. I know he's a horse and doesn't understand the concept of me going away to study, but he's more than just a horse to you," Thomas finished. "I get it. Tell him anyway. It might help you both." Later that afternoon, Emma brought Miracle in from the pasture for their now weekly therapy session. No longer a necessity for his physical well-being, but a routine they both enjoyed and that Dr. Marshall had suggested maintaining as a preventative measure. As she led him to the rehabilitation area they had established in the barn, she found herself speaking to him about her plans. "I'm going to Colorado for the summer," she told him, running a curry comb over his gleaming coat, "to learn more about helping horses like you, and then to school in the fall to get proper certification." She paused, feeling that familiar tightness in her throat. "I wouldn't be doing any of this if it weren't for you, you know. You showed me what I'm meant to do." Miracle turned his head toward her, his dark eyes seeming to hold understanding beyond mere animal perception. He nudged her shoulder gently with his muzzle, a gesture that had become his way of expressing affection. "I'll miss you too," Emma whispered, wrapping her arms around his neck in a brief hug. "But I'm not leaving forever. And when I come back, I'll be able to help more horses. Maybe even start that therapy program we've been planning." The therapy program had evolved from a vague idea into a concrete plan over the winter months. Thomas had set aside a portion of the ranch specifically for this purpose, and construction had begun on facilities designed to accommodate both equine rehabilitation and therapeutic riding for humans. Emma's vision, supported by her father's resources and practical experience, was becoming a reality. "Willow Creek Equine Therapy Center," she said, trying out the name they had chosen. "Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?" Across the barn, Bella nickered softly from her stall, as if offering her approval of the venture. The mare had become something of a celebrity in veterinary circles, with Dr. Brennan's paper on her maternal behavior being accepted for publication in a prestigious journal. There had even been talk of including Bella in the therapy program, her gentle nature and intuitive understanding of vulnerability making her an ideal candidate for working with children. As spring deepened into summer, Emma's departure date approached. The evening before she was set to leave for Colorado, she spent extra time in the pasture with Miracle and Bella, sitting on a flat boulder that offered a view of the entire ranch. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the land, highlighting the new construction of the therapy center and the horses grazing peacefully in the distance. "I couldn't have imagined any of this a year ago," she said to Lily, who had joined her to say goodbye before heading back to veterinary school herself. "It's amazing how one moment, one decision can change everything." Lily nodded, watching as Miracle playfully chased a butterfly, his movements fluid and confident, despite his permanent mild lameness. "That day you found him barely able to stand, did you ever doubt he would make it this far?" Emma considered the question, thinking back to those first desperate days of Miracle's life. There were moments of fear, she admitted, times when the odds seemed overwhelming. But doubt? No, not really. Something in him, in both of them. She nodded toward Bella, who stood watch nearby. Something told me they had the strength to overcome anything if they just had the chance. The two friends sat in comfortable silence for a while, absorbing the peaceful scene before them. Finally, as the light began to fade, Emma stood up, brushing grass from her jeans. "I should finish packing. Early start tomorrow." Lily rose to join her. "You're ready for this, you know. Dr. Jennings is lucky to have you." As they walked back toward the house, Emma glanced over her shoulder one last time. Miracle had moved to stand beside his mother, their silhouettes outlined against the sunset, two figures that had defied the odds through an unbreakable bond of love and determination. The image etched itself in Emma's heart, a reminder of why she was embarking on this new path and what would be waiting for her when she returned. Whatever challenges lay ahead in her studies and her career, she would face them with the same resilience she had witnessed in a sick foal who couldn't walk and the mother who had done the impossible to save him. 5 years later, the sign at the entrance to the ranch read, "Willow Creek Equine Therapy and Rehabilitation Center," and the facilities had expanded to include specialized areas for both horse rehabilitation and therapeutic riding programs for people with physical and emotional challenges. Emma, now a certified equine rehabilitation specialist with additional training in therapeutic riding instruction, directed the center with a quiet competence that had earned her respect throughout the region. And in the main pasture, still inseparable despite the passing years, Miracle and Bella continued their extraordinary journey together. The foal who once couldn't stand had become a handsome, spirited horse whose slight limp did nothing to diminish his joy in running with the wind. The mother who had refused to give up on him remained his constant companion, their bond a daily reminder of what love, determination, and unwavering faith could accomplish. Visitors to the center often heard the story of Miracle and Bella, a story that had inspired not just a career, but an entire philosophy of healing and hope. It was a story Emma never tired of telling because in its essence was a truth that applied to every horse and human who came to Willow Creek seeking rehabilitation. With enough love, patience, and determination, even the most impossible odds could be overcome. As Emma often said, watching Miracle gallop across the pasture with the fluid grace of a horse who had no idea he wasn't supposed to run, miracles don't just happen. Sometimes they're made, one small step at a time.